3 News Now Web Extra.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are live on the 3 News Now Facebook page. I'm Jennifer Griswold. We've been doing a series of these as part of our series called the Rebound Heartland. We have been checking in with people to see how they're rebounding and adapting and dealing with the changes that the pandemic brings, really all of us. So our topic today, this week, is on restaurants. And obviously, we know the restaurant industry has been hit hard by this since last spring. So we wanted to talk to some of the experts and some of the people who are affected by this most personally to see what it's like and what we all can be doing as people who support restaurants to help them through this time as well. So I want to just do a quick introduction of everyone. First, we have Zoe Olson with the Nebraska Restaurant Association. Shelly Stokes, president of Spaghetti Works, Amanda Frank, marketing and events director with the Capital District, and Nicole Jesse with La Casa Pizzaria. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really do appreciate this discussion. And if anyone is tuning in, you can just write your comments in the comments on the Facebook comments, and we'll see them, and then we'll be able to discuss them. So feel free to weigh in there. First of all, if you wouldn't mind, if we could just go around and talk a little bit about your personal experience, about how has the pandemic impacted you personally or your business? Shelly, can we start with you with Spaghetti Works?
I think for the most part, again, just like everybody else, our sales are down. We love the fact that they're supporting Takeout Tuesday, but to be real honest with you, coming out once a week just isn't enough. We're used to having large groups, and that's something that with the pandemic, we can't do right now. So we've seen a pretty good decrease in sales. We've seen some layoffs. We're watching some of our people. I think Zoe has said it in the past. A lot of people don't realize that when you're in the restaurants, it's a family. It's all personal. I mean, there are just so many people and so many lives that are affected. It's not just the restaurant that is affected. It's not just the profit and losses for that restaurant. The dishwasher and the salad people and everybody else that works inside of these four walls, they're affected. Their hours are cut. We've taken a couple layoffs. Of course, back when we had the shutdown, they were completely laid off. Those kind of things are affecting. And I think that gets to be even harder on managers, is to watch the people that you work with every day struggle and not be able to pay their bills or worry about where they're going to get their rent money from. And we all do our best to try and help these people and make sure they get to it. But it's not just about the restaurants. And I guess that's kind of my message is, it is, and we want obviously our restaurants to stay strong, but it's all the people that you see when you walk inside those doors. They're affected, and that becomes a lot harder to watch.
I think that's a good point. I was messaging on social media about how I was doing this today, and someone reached out saying that she has a part-time job. She's a mom of working at a restaurant part-time, and she said that she's making so much less than she was before the pandemic. And, that might be, for some people, it might be their entire income. For some people, it might be an additional income that they plan on, especially during the holiday season, to maybe give that little extra for their kids and whatnot. So you're right. It impacts families, and it's not just the bottom line in the restaurant. I think you're right. It's and really, you're all people too, so it really impacts everyone that way. Nicole, what about same thing? I mean, can you talk a little bit about what you're feeling and seeing a family business there?
Well, I think Shelly hit on one of the key things, which is with not only with our staff, but also with our customers. The pandemic has been difficult for everybody, and not just for me as an owner and as a manager. Yes, there's a lot of things that we've had to change day by day, but our staff, it has impacted them. But we're also hearing a lot from our customers. They want to support, but they can only do so much. Some have lost jobs. Some have lost family members because of this, and so it's been difficult for a lot. So I think a lot of it is, we try to tell people, be kind, be considerate, be patient. It's hard. It's a big struggle for people. We have had to lay some people off. We've been fortunate that we've had a strong takeout business, and that has really helped us. But even with that, I mean, our sales are down. And we know that the community is doing everything that they can, and we appreciate the support that we have received. But as Shelly said, people used to go out a lot more, not just for takeout. People would go out to celebrate various occasions. I know for us, for a family restaurant, people would come here for birthdays, anniversaries. Our party room was being used a lot more for prenuptials, family gatherings, especially this time of year for Christmas. That's one area where, it's going to hit a lot of businesses who normally have people out and about celebrating. But it impacts everybody. This is just not an easy time for all of us.
Follow up on that. How are you feeling at this point in the pandemic? Obviously, it's been going on for a while. We've seen some changes in terms of what is and isn't allowed. Promising news we're hearing on the vaccine front, but we still have, at least a few more months. They're saying it could be a pretty tough winter that way. So looking at where you've come from, how are you feeling now looking forward?
I'm going to say, I think a lot of our staff, as well as our managers and right along with myself, we're tired. It seems like every day we have a new announcement, we have a new problem that we're dealing with, something else that and you're not making actual changes to the better. You're just struggling. I heard somebody on the news the other night talk about we're treading water. And I think that's a good example of exactly what's happening right now. We're busily treading water. We're struggling as hard as we can, and our noses are just above sea level there. We're just above the water. It's hard, and I think it's tiring. I know emotionally it was really frustrating to have to go through the layoffs we did here in the last week or so. A really good example, Thanksgiving should have been a wonderful week for us. Families are back, kids are back from college. We usually see a huge crowd. They weren't there. They didn't come out. They weren't supposed to be out, and we understand that. And as we've talked about, it's frustrating, and I think it gets to be a little tiring for everyone. And so again, I think you're absolutely right. Be patient. Treat your staff well. Treat your waiters well. Treat your to-go people well. It's not their fault that we're in this. That's not their fault. They didn't cause any of this, and they're certainly as tired as everybody else with it.
Yeah, so true. I think everyone does feel that fatigue. Zoe Olson is someone who's been working hard throughout the pandemic. Give us a little bit of an overview when it comes to restaurants. What have we seen? We definitely know some, unfortunately, have not been able to make it through this far. What are some of the numbers we're looking at that way?
Well, Shelly, we are associated with the National Restaurant Association, and they do surveys every. They were doing them every month in the spring, and we just completed another one. We should have numbers, I'm hoping, tomorrow. We just finished it on November 30th, which was Monday. But our last survey said about 6% of Nebraska restaurants expected to close permanently. I'm guessing it may be a little bit higher than that. We are, as far as I know, and understand that people don't necessarily call us and say, hey, we're closing. They just, with everything else, they just close. So I think we're doing better than the national average from what I'm checking on with media and other people in communities, because we do represent the entire state. I think we're doing better than nationally, which it's expected 50 to 60% of restaurants nationally will close. And as Shelly said, the main impact from that is not just the restaurants, it's the people. There are over 650,000 restaurants in the United States. Think how many employees that is. Think how many human lives that is, how many people that is. And so in our state, we are the largest group industry employer in the state. We're also the number one source of revenue for tourism in the state. So as restaurants go, so goes the economy, so goes unemployment. So that's the main thing. And again, I guess my thing would be right now we are concerned because CARES is expiring. The CARES Act expires December 31st. We're monitoring what's happening in Washington nonstop. And we're hoping that there's going to be some relief for people by the end, before the end of the year, before CARES Act expires. Maybe expanded unemployment insurance for those who are being laid off through no fault of their own and no fault of the restaurant. It's just we're limited in what we have, and so we're hoping, because the state is out of money. There just is a lack of that financial support, which we're all desperately needing. And again, as Shelly said, be kind. Be kind. As we were speaking earlier, Jennifer, I am appalled and saddened by how badly it seems like we're treating each other. Not everybody. Certainly there's a lot of kindness out there, but it only takes one person to be really angry and really negative to kind of ruin your whole day or your whole month or whatever, because everybody is working as hard as they can. It's the hospitality industry. That's what we do. We're hospitable. And so we're trying to be kind, and we'd appreciate it if people were kind, not just to us, but to each other. I think that would go a long way in making everybody feel a little bit better during these times.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, you're dealing with public health concerns as well as making sure businesses stay open. And, some people may see some of those things fighting each other at times, but I think everyone is hoping for the same end result of keeping people safe, but also keeping people secure in terms of employment and whatnot, if we can do that as well. So you were mentioning, that money expiring. I mean, we early on heard about all the payment protection program loans and all of that, but at this point, we're at a point where you think people need more funding to sustain this.
Definitely, and even with the Paycheck Protection Program, there are problems with that. The IRS came out and said, okay, if it's a forgivable loan, now you can't deduct all those business expenses. So what would happen is that would be unexpected income. It would be counted as income, but no deductions to offset it. So all our restaurants could come out with this huge tax bill next year. So we're working also to try to get that changed and those regulations changed, because otherwise that's going to be another hit to the industry that I don't think a lot of them will be able to survive. It's just, everything had to happen so fast that a lot of things weren't well thought through. And, the minutia, the details, the regulations that normally you'd have people poring over and making sure everything was okay, that didn't happen. And now we're trying to go back and retrofit, regulations and guidance to make sure that people aren't harmed because they got the Paycheck Protection Program funds to keep people employed for 6 weeks. That's about what it was for. And now they're going to be penalized because they did that. It's, I can't tell you the volume of issues we're dealing with right now, just trying to certainly not make people whole, but keep people employed and keep businesses open and operating.
Yeah, we have been hearing about places trying to adapt and change. I mean, one of the concerns I think coming up is it's winter, and I think there was a little bit of a boost of people who maybe felt uncomfortable going places we're going and eating outside and things. And of course, we know it gets cold here. I do know the Capital District has put into place some changes. We featured those igloos, for example. Can you talk a little bit about, Amanda, talk a little bit about what the Capital District is doing this year to kind of adapt and keep businesses open during this?
Yeah, the Capital District is fortunate to be one of Omaha's few officially designated entertainment zones, which means that you can take your food and drink out into our plaza or Modern Town Square and enjoy your meal out there. Our restaurants and bars have been utilizing that for several months when the weather permits. But we knew coming into these colder winter months that we were going to have to get creative during this strange year. So we implemented these new igloos. So they are socially distanced, and we clean them between every booking. There's 30 minutes So you can get your takeout from any of the bars and restaurants and enjoy your food and drink inside these igloos with your family or people that you're normally exposed to. So with the cleaning that we've implemented and all of the precautions that we take, it's kind of a safe option during the pandemic to take, your COVID bubble to our bubbles.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing that used to be in that space was the ice skating, for example, and that had to change. Was that a tough choice to make, and why was the decision there to get rid of that this year?
Absolutely, that was a tough decision. We love the ice rink, and we love, what it does for the district, and that, just people enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, but the igloos this year just seemed like a much safer option, and safety is our number one priority. And I think the igloos also give the ability to get the takeout and still utilize that entertainment zone that we have. So you can take everything from the restaurants outside and still enjoy it in the plaza, even when it's cold, as where the ice rink, we didn't have those warm spots where you can sit outside and eat.
Sure. So it's a chance to then give people that actual space in those igloos. We were talking earlier about, how Takeout Tuesday, for example, while nice, isn't really enough to hold over a business the whole time. So I guess what is your recommendation either to Shelly or to Nicole of if someone at home is in a place where they can support a business, support a restaurant, what would you ask that they do, and how is the best way that they can support you? Keeping in mind that, again, people have different feelings about their public health and what they want to do that way. What would you recommend? How can we make sure that we're supporting our local businesses through this and doing as much as we can? Shelly, do you want to start?
I think most people are. We've seen an increase in our to-go orders, which is not something that you usually think of with Spaghetti Works. So that's something that, we've now placed online ordering. We've got Grubhub. We've got things that we've never done in the past as well. So that's something that the restaurants have had to do. When I talk about things are kind of frustrating and things are, it's the work that goes into that. So if people can come out and they can order a meal and take it back to their homes, if that's what they want to do, the more often they can do that, the better. I think people shy away from coming into restaurants and taking the food to go, but trust me, we've packaged it up very well. We've tested it. We've made sure that we can get it there and it's going to be warm and still fresh and everything. So I think it's kind of a new thing for people to try and try some different things. Maybe some place that you haven't gone before because the lines were too long. We don't have that issue right now. So if you can't come out, take it to go. I would also like to add on what Zoe said about some of the rules and just briefly talk about the mask mandate real quick. And I'm not asking for whether you're for or against it. But what I would like to ask is that people be cognizant of it and make sure that you're not after the wrong people. We're seeing a lot more people coming into the restaurant who are very upset at others who aren't wearing a mask. And they really want us as a restaurant to enforce that, which we're doing our best to do. But I have 16-year-olds on the hostess stand that they're not comfortable confronting customers and telling them they have to do something. So if everyone could just do their part and wear those masks and do what they're supposed to do, that would help us out tremendously as well. It's really hard to be an employee who has to confront an adult and tell them that they're supposed to do something that's been told to them.
That's such a good point. And, unfortunately, we have seen examples of that. There have been viral videos of it, of, young people being asked to, call people out for it, for example. And you're right, that's a lot to ask of really anyone in that position. That's not really what their job description is, but especially, you're right, younger people who are working in these roles. So I think that's a good point, that if everyone can kind of take those steps and think of everyone else, it makes the whole process a little smoother there. Yeah, Zoe, go ahead.
Gift cards make great gifts. They make great Hanukkah gifts. They make great Christmas gifts. They make great stocking stuffers. And that is one way, if you don't feel comfortable going out right now, that is a huge thing you can do for our restaurants, because and many of our restaurants are doing specials where if you buy $50 worth, you get a little bit extra, or if you buy $100 worth, you get a little bit more extra. Gift cards are huge right now for us. And if you're mailing things to people rather than, delivering them, gift cards. And then when family can come back and visit you, they've got their gift with them. They're inexpensive to mail. And I would say, please, please, please think about considering gift cards for your gift giving this year. It puts some money in the business so that we can keep those people employed, and then they'll be there to serve you when you do feel comfortable coming out next spring, which is probably what's going to happen with the vaccine. So gift cards, great gifts.
And I'll bring up too, I know we get a lot of takeout, and there's nothing against putting an extra tip on a takeout. If you normally would have tipped anyway, and you kind of would expect to pay that much on a night out. Sure, you're not getting that same service. And again, I'm very respectful to some people who cannot do that. I get that's going on. But if you can, add an extra tip, because that money will be shared for people. I'm going to show this comment here. The restaurant industry has been incredibly adaptable during this pandemic, and we continue to encourage the public to support their local businesses. Food is safe, COVID-19 not spread by carryout. Zoe, you talked about this a lot early on. If you could kind of address that, there have always been things that could be spread, diseases, illness, but the restaurant industry does have a lot of protocols in place to make sure they're keeping things safe and clean. And so kind of lined up for something like this to make sure that they're still following those protocols. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So restaurants have been doing sanitizing and disinfecting and following health regulations for literally decades. We have some of the strongest health requirements in the country. And think about it. We do everything we can to keep people safe, because if we don't have a business. So what happened was, with COVID, we've redoubled. I mean, it's the masking, it's the PPE, it's putting up barriers between checkout and, when you're paying in some restaurants where you go up to pay, everything without, contactless payments and everything. We put all that in place. And I know my restaurants, if they were sanitizing or disinfecting every 4 hours, now they're doing it every 2 hours. If they were doing it every 3 hours, they're doing it every hour and a half. It's just inherent in the business. Hospitality, you don't invite somebody in and then not take care of them. So the extreme measures that our businesses have gone to and turning on a dime, I keep my members informed of everything that changes, and there are always, questions about, well, how about if I, can I do this? Would this be better? Would this be better? Can I do this more? So it's not just that most restaurants in our association are doing the minimum under the DHMs. They're doing more even than what the DHMs are requiring them to do, because they want to keep those customers and their staff safe. And I think some of our things that we've adapted during COVID will probably stay, because we've seen, okay, that's a smarter way to deal with possible disease outbreaks. And I get a lot of pushback on this, but it is true, and I have the data to prove it, or the information to prove it. There has not been a severe outbreak of COVID traced back to a restaurant. Now, does that mean that all restaurant employees have never had COVID and no customer that's ever been in a restaurant has COVID? No. What it means is, when you see these severe super spreader events, they have not been tracked back to a restaurant nationally. And that, I think, goes to a lot of things. And one of them is how we protect our customers, how we protect our staff, but also the behavior in a restaurant. If you think about it, you're not going into a restaurant and standing and, in really close contact with a lot of people. You're not going to be there for hours on end, like you might be in somebody's home or at a wedding reception or even in a bar. you're not there as long, and you're not as close to people. And certainly, as Shelly said, wearing those masks, you take your mask down when you eat and drink, but you put the mask back on, and you're not going to be in contact with one of our servers in close proximity for a long duration. You're just not. If you think about it, the wait staff comes up, they take your order, they bring you things, but they leave right away, and they're wearing masks. So it's a safer environment than I think people realize, and it is a safer place to be if you want to get together than being in a home where you let down your guard and you say, well, these are my friends and my family. They're not going to make me sick. You ask about personally, my family, I have 3 adult children with their spouses that live here in Lincoln. I have another child and his family that live in Texas. We do not get together. And there's a couple of reasons for that. My husband has been having some health problems. He had surgery in February. We don't bring other people into our home. I have a mother who is in a memory care facility, and I haven't been able to actually hold her hand or give her a hug since February 28th. We're taking every precaution we can. Do we eat out in restaurants? Yes, we do. But we feel safe there, and we wear our masks. And because of COVID, I will tell you, dining rooms are not full. You're more than socially distanced in most of our restaurants, just because we're just not seeing the traffic. So for me personally, I'm doing everything the CDC says to do. My family is, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something to note personally. I know, I mean, a lot of people have obviously different opinions about it, but I think if we're all doing our best, trying our best, taking a lot of these efforts and steps and educating ourselves on it, it does make a difference in terms of how we're limiting the spread. And as you mentioned, I mean, if you're talking about going to a restaurant, for example, it doesn't mean, you know, gathering your entire neighborhood to go to the restaurant, or seeing all these friends you haven't seen in a long time to go to a restaurant together. It could be perhaps just with your immediate family again, which is one way to contain it a bit. One thing that has been coming up recently is we keep looking at these numbers, and the governor's talked about if we hit that red zone, which will be in terms of hospitalizations, that's going to create quite a few new changes. Masks would be required. It would change to the dine-in being only certain places, but it's pretty much all restaurants. I think it's bars that wouldn't be able to have dine-in, correct?
Well, bars have to serve food.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So if bars are not serving food, then they would be closed down. Actually, in Lancaster, we have those, that DHM is in place. So in Lancaster, in Lincoln, you cannot, bars cannot be open. So they were restricted to carry out only. And also we have a curfew in Lincoln already. Now, if the governor puts his curfew into place, that will be shortened. So right now, restaurants in Lincoln they have to stop serving and have everybody out at the restaurant earlier than they normally would. So if the governor puts his in place, it would be a 9 p.m. curfew in restaurants across the state.
And Nicole, did you see a lot of changes when you know, things were cracked down quite a bit more and then they opened up? Have you seen more people coming, or is it still hard to get people in the doors?
Well, initially we saw an uptick in dine-in, which was encouraging, but then the numbers started trending in the wrong direction. And the messaging that went out was, please, you know, don't go out, just do takeout. Dining in was strongly discouraged. And so because of that, we've seen those numbers go back down. And unfortunately, this time of year with the holidays, usually we see a pretty significant uptick for dine-in business. And so it's definitely impacted that. Again, the community has been very supportive with takeout, and I encourage them to continue to do that. A couple other things besides the gift cards that Zoe mentioned that would also be helpful, because when people would dine in, you would have some incidentals that would be added to their meal. It wasn't just food. You know, they would be getting beverages, whether it was beer, wine, cocktails, even, you know, pop, whatever. That's another way you can support a lot of the local places is when you go in and pick up takeout. You know, if you like wine, get a bottle of wine, or maybe get some beer, or even a favorite cocktail, or, you know, a 6-pack of pop. A lot of places are doing things to allow people to complete their meal so that they can have a similar experience at home, you know, without having to run to the grocery store, or they can have everything there. Order dessert. You know, you might not think about ordering dessert with your takeout, but so many places have great desserts that they can package. So the dine-in part, unfortunately, this would be a really, really good time of year for dine-in for most of the restaurants, and it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So there's just other things that I think that people can do to help support. I am anticipating, since we're going into winter, once the holidays pass, typically the winter period is also very slow for a lot of restaurants. So, I'm not anticipating that the dine-in picture is going to change drastically until we get closer to the spring and there's more people that have been vaccinated and people feel more comfortable, because the messaging has really just been, don't dine out. And I will reiterate what Zoe has said. You know, restaurants have been doing a great job, because my husband and I have gone out for dinner on several occasions, and we have felt comfortable because the places we have gone to, they have the tables spaced. Everyone in front of the house is wearing a mask. They're being very careful about what they're doing. You know, you can see them doing the cleaning and the sanitizing. And, you know, I just feel that for people that feel comfortable dining out, I want to assure you that the restaurants are doing their absolute best to make it a good environment. One other thing that I will mention, if you see people dining out, some people think that they're being irresponsible. We've actually had several customers who now feel more comfortable dining out because they've already had COVID. They've recovered from it, so they feel like they have some immunity, at least for a while. So not everybody that's out and about is, you know, violating or trying to show some level of, you know, resistance to what they're being asked to do. Some people actually just feel more comfortable because they've already gone through it. So again, it kind of goes back to that whole thing about, you know, people being kind and patient and not being so judgmental about what other people are doing or not doing.
You mentioned the alcohol sales. Did that help when, I mean, I know it's been a while now, but did that help when the to-go became an option?
It did help. You know, we actually saw more people doing it earlier. We've actually seen that drop off. We've tried to do some promotional things with beer, wine, and cocktails. And and again, you know, there are many reasons why I'm sure people are looking at where they're spending their money, especially with the holidays. I think a lot of people are picking those items up at the grocery store, so they're not thinking about getting them at a restaurant. But if you are looking for a way to additional support for the restaurants, that would be a way to do it as well, besides the gift cards.
Sure. Shelly, and those were similar things. It looked like you were going to say something with that.
We're actually mirroring the exact same conversation. I mean, our sales, same thing. We have the same uptick. We got about here 2 weeks ago and we saw it decline. Some of that has to do with the announcements that were made. I would remind people that if we do go on any kind of shutdown, if the restaurant or if the bars have to do that, if the restaurants get a curfew, keep in mind that that doesn't change the whole, what we've been through already. We are safe. We are clean. We've been doing this forever. We know what it is. And I would also encourage what Nicole is saying. You know, a lot of people can't do dessert in a restaurant because you don't have the room to eat it. And especially when you come in here, you know, there's a lot of food to be had. But when you take it home, that gives you the chance to eat it at 10 o'clock. It gives you a chance to eat it next morning for breakfast, if that's what you choose to do. Even to alcohol. If you're going to the grocery store, you're buying the whole bottle. We're going to sell it to you in a smaller quantity. So you don't have to buy the whole bottle. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do with that whipped vodka if you don't have any other recipe for it. Those are the things a restaurant allows you to do. It allows you to experiment and try new things that you don't always get. And I would encourage people that if you're in a restaurant, we're socially distancing, we've got our table spread out, but if you don't feel like that table is the spot for you, let your hostess know that. They'll move you. We have no issue with people who find a seat not something they want to do. That's why we're in the hospitable business. That's what we do. If you want to move, we'll move you. We have other places to go. Like I said, there's a lot of things. Some people prefer not to have a booth or a table. Now it's the same thing as being said about some of the booths that we're seating them at. They don't particularly like the distancing. Let us know that. We'll move you. We have no problem with that. We are accommodating.
You know, that's something, yeah, do you think then if it goes into the red zone, you don't feel like it'll change that much, because really you'll still be able to operate for the most part? Again, the hours would change, a couple things like that, but do you think it'll keep things kind of the same, or are you fearful for that?
Will. I think the problem you have with it is if we go into a red zone, I think the situation hasn't changed dramatically in the sense of what you'll see in a restaurant or what you'll experience in a restaurant. What changes is the public's mentality towards it. So suddenly everybody gets fearful. And we watch this actually, we have a restaurant in Des Moines, and we watched this happen where the governor came in and shut all the bars down, and suddenly our sales just plummeted. We are not a bar. Obviously, we're family restaurant. We don't sell a lot of bar business. But because we were in a district with bars, suddenly nobody wanted to come out. Nobody was going to those places. So they kind of lumped us all into the same package, and they weren't coming to the restaurants either. So I would encourage people that, you know, just because we go into the red, it is serious. And I want to make sure that we all take it very seriously. But the restaurants are still open, and we're still trying to support the staff we have, and don't let that hinder you from coming out. We're still safe. As Zoe said, we haven't had a breakout that has been traced to a restaurant yet, knock on wood, and hopefully we don't see that, but we don't get close to you. Our employees don't get close. We don't stand around for 15 minutes. They don't have time to chit chat with you for 15 minutes like your aunt or uncle at a gathering or your friend at a party does. We come in, we ask what you need, we ask if there's anything else we can get, and those servers are on their way. Your hostess sees you for 5 minutes as she's seating you, and if we're doing well, she's 2-3 feet in front of you. If not, she's probably is 6 feet in front of you. So again, nothing has changed here. So let's not let that affect what we're doing. Let's just be safe and cautious of what we do when we come in.
Yeah. Amanda, you know, with the business district, with the capital district, is that tough in that I would imagine in the past it used to be someone would go down and maybe hop to a few places, but now do you think there's more of a mentality of, if I am going to venture out, I'm just going to one particular place and that'll be my night? Have you seen anything like that?
No, I think people are still going to different places. I've noticed that, you know, they may go into Epica and have dinner, but then they still walk around the district and notice that, you know, we have this awesome jazz club. We also have a virtual reality place. There's Spade Kings just opened up, and Come and Go. So there's a lot that the district offers other than just the restaurant. So there's a lot to do when you do go out to eat. And I'm excited that people are still, you know, venturing out even in the cold weather to see everything that we have to offer.
Do you think, same thing, do you think if there is a chance, if we go into the red zone again, we have not, in fact, we've actually started dipping down a little bit. But if we go into the red zone with hospitalizations, do you think that'll affect the area, since there are places there people think a little more of going out to the bars?
Our bars are really great at sticking to the restrictions as they are now. It will be unfortunate if we get to the red zone and we'll kind of, you know, jump that hurdle when we get there. But as they were saying with the restaurants, they are safe options. And, you know, our restaurants do a great job of keeping everyone safe, as well as all the other businesses in the Capital District. We as a whole take it very serious. The igloos, we went ahead and made the max capacity 6 instead of the 8. So we're staying underneath the recommended guidelines. So hopefully, even if we do get to the red zone, people still feel safe coming to the Capital District and know that we take safety very seriously.
Yeah, I think education is a big part of it too. You've all said that people sometimes jump to conclusions or think people are handling things incorrectly. I know early on, especially, I would get questions of, well, I went and saw this happening. Is that allowed? And the answer was yes, it is. And really all of the restrictions, directed health measures, all of those things are listed on a DHHS website. So if you have questions like that, you can always go to them and look that up. Or maybe that's a question you might have if you're trying something you hadn't really tried before. If you're thinking of going into a restaurant, maybe look it up ahead of time so you know what to expect, so that we don't go into a place and expect, again, nothing against them, but expect the 18-year-old server to be able to give us all the rules and regulations. This is a way we can kind of educate ourselves on what is in place at this time, especially since we are by the border, as we mentioned, and you may be venturing into Iowa, and it's different in Iowa than it is in Nebraska right now. I think at this point, I'd like to kind of close things up, and I'd like each of you to just think about what would you want to say to people listening in about either what you're going through or what your hope is moving forward. Your plea to them, really your final thoughts, if you will. Not sure who wants to start. And it can be kind of what we were talking about at the beginning too, because as we know, people are dipping in and re-listening at different times.
Well, I'll go ahead and start, and I'll just say we don't have to pick winners and losers. My members know that I sign off all my emails with "Thanks for all you do. We're all in this together." And the fact of the matter is, we are all in this together. What I do affects other people, maybe even people that I come in very slight contact with, maybe when I go to the store or something. But what I do, how I treat other people, and every action I take has an effect on somebody else. Please, please, please think of your fellow Nebraskan. Think of your fellow person in Omaha, and understand that we don't have to have winners and losers. We can all come out of this better human beings than we went into it, I think. And so just be kind and take care of each other.
Definitely. Good points.
I would
Nicole?
like to say that I just want to thank the Omaha community for your support, because I know this has been it's been a difficult time for everybody, not just the restaurants, for the people that patronize the restaurants, for family members. There's a lot of concerns. And so just know that the restaurants, the people in the hospitality business do recognize that you are going through challenging times as well. And we want to do the best that we can to serve you. And we really do thank your support, because without it, those of us that are still able to operate wouldn't be here. And we do need it, but I also don't want people to feel bad because we've had people say, I'd come in to eat, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it. So we're just getting takeout, and it's okay. It's okay. We get it. We understand. And but we are very appreciative. And if you can continue to support us in any way, know that it is greatly appreciated by all of our staff. They are our family, and we just want to thank you.
Yeah, good point. Everyone is in it together. I know that came out early on. People were saying that a lot, and some people say, "Oh, it's become like this cheesy thing that we're all in it together," but really we are. There is no other way to be but all of us working together through this, because we're all in the same, although different boats. We're all going through it. So Shelly, what about you?
I think I'm going to really reiterate a lot of what Nicole just said. If you were somebody who went out 2, 3, 4 times a week, order to go for those times. Help us help our staff keep their lights on, keep their rent paid. We appreciate everything you've done, and Omaha is great for coming out and supporting their restaurants. And we just want you to keep doing that same piece, that same thing that you've been doing this whole time. And if that has to be to go, we're good with that. If that means you can come in and sit at a restaurant and enjoy the hospitality, we appreciate that too. We just need you to try and keep to somewhat of the normalcy that you've had in the past. Keep coming out the same number of times. If you're a person who went out once a week, great, we love you. And if you're somebody who came out 4 or 5 times a week, we love you too. We want to see everybody just, like I said, come back out, do what you've been doing in the sense of restaurants, and help us help all of our people just keep paying the rent and doing what they need to do.
Well said. Thank you so much, Shelly. And Amanda, your turn. Final thought.
I just want to thank the Omaha community for understanding, our choice to pivot from the ice rink to the igloos. And I really want to encourage everyone to kind of get creative during these winter months and during the pandemic, to maybe take Takeout Tuesday to a new level and start some theme nights, and just get creative with your families or people that you're normally exposed to, whether that's playing a board game in an igloo and getting tacos, or planning an entire staycation where you get an igloo and grab some takeout from Lighthouse Pizza and have a staycation at the Marriott. Just really get creative and do fun, close-knit activities with your families in a safe environment.
Definitely. Thank all of you so much for joining us for this discussion. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that moving forward, we can hear from all of you again. Someone else commented, thank all of you and your staff for providing safe meals for the public and for taking food safety seriously. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone in our community, and businesses, small businesses are often what helps our business, our community go round. And as you mentioned, the holidays, we always think of, buying those gifts at local shops and stores, but there are ways to support local businesses this time, local restaurants this time of year too. So we really appreciate it. Thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.